Hey friend, welcome to the Bible Tract Echoes radio broadcast. I'm Michael McCurry, your host, and I'm so very thankful for the fact that you have joined me today. I'm going to do something I don't know that I've ever done before on the Bible Tract Echoes radio program. Today's broadcast features a little bit of an impromptu interview. Those of you that are watching the video version may be wondering, where are you, Brother Micah? Because you're definitely not in your office. Well, I'm nowhere near the offices of Bible Tracts Incorporated. I'm actually coming to you from the kitchen of a missions house outside of a church in sunny Lodi, California. And yes, it is sunny in California this time. My family is not with me this time, unfortunately, but I've had the opportunity to come back to California. Had some wonderful services last night here at the church in Lodi, staying in they're kind enough to allow me to stay in the missions house all this week. And that gets us to the point of the thought today, because we have an impromptu interview with a lady named Belinda. Now, I met Miss Belinda maybe a year or two ago, but she's been coming to the church here for a couple of years. She's wonderful. But we connected last year about this time of year, about the springtime, and she was telling me how difficult it was for her to use gospel tracts. As you may imagine, whenever I'm at a church, whenever I'm speaking to folks specifically about this topic, I push the use of gospel tracts pretty hard. I challenge people about using gospel tracts, and Miss Belinda took that to heart. And maybe, just maybe, the Holy Spirit was working on her as well. Miss Belinda has a beautiful rescue dog that she likes to take to the dog park. And her wheels began turning, and she thought, you know what, I need to take gospel tracts with me, and I need to use, she meets people at the dog park all the time and in her daily life, but she was thinking, I've got to start carrying gospel tracts. I've got to start using gospel tracts. And so I'm going to let her tell you in her own words a little bit. Last night we were talking, and she just, her fervor for the gospel, her excitement, it was contagious. And I was thinking, man, oh man, I'm so glad last year that she took what I said to heart and she put feet to it. She took action. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about what God is doing through her life, through her investment for the sake of souls. I'm going to introduce you now to Miss Belinda here in Lodi, California. Hey friends, I am here with Miss Belinda. We're here in Lodi, California, and we were just talking and reminiscing about how a year plus, about 13 months or so ago, we talked about how tracts and using tracts weren't really a big part of your life. And you gave me some reasons for that. One, and you were very transparent, honest. You talked about how there's the fear. And you talk a little about what is it that we're fearful of? Reactions, or what is it that people might be afraid of? And for you personally, what were you afraid of when you were talking about the potential of using tracts?
I just thought people would say, oh, no thanks, and not want to take it, or they would ask me questions that I wasn't prepared to answer. Mainly.
Absolutely. Well, and then the second reason you gave for not using tracts, this one hit close to home for me sometimes too. You said sometimes it's just laziness. Because we have so many things going on, so many things that feel so important. But can you talk about that for just a moment, how sometimes we just don't do the work?
Right. I knew the best thing for me to do would be to share my faith, but I really felt that if I didn't do it, somebody else would, and I just wasn't motivated.
Absolutely. And to think about now, so the way, you use gospel tracts all the time, the cashier at Walmart or whatever, but one of the main ways you do it is you have a little dog, little rescue, which is the cutest little thing. Maybe, just maybe, for those of you that watch the video version of this, maybe I'll add a picture in so people can see him if you don't mind. But you take your dog to the dog park. Right. And what's your dog's name, first of all? Mila. So take Mila to the dog park, and at the dog park, you meet a lot of dogs, but you also meet a lot of dog owners. Mm-hmm. And so Miss Belinda was just telling me, in the last 12, 13 months, just people whose names she's kept track of. So you've engaged people in conversation with not only the purpose of being friendly, but what's the main purpose behind being friendly with them?
To be able to give them a tract and to have their name so I can pray for them when I can. And I actually have a partner that I pray with on a regular basis that we we try to go over some of the names
That's phenomenal.
and pray for their.
And in the last 12, so this was March of 22 when we talked about this, and I probably, here in Lodi, the church we're at, had wonderful services today. I probably talked about Tracts pretty heavily, and you got burdened about it, felt like the Lord was speaking to you about it. That's March. We're now April of 23. Go ahead.
It was April when I April when I really started passing the tracts
So
out
in
more.
12 months, how many names do you have in your little book? These are just ones you've tracked. There's way more tracks than this. But how many just that you've tracked?
275.
275. So think about that. There's only 365 days in the year. We're almost, Miss Melinda, averaging one a day. That's just people she's tracked. Probably over 500, really, if we're being realistic with it. But to think about that, we have no idea how big your street in heaven is going to be with people that you're populating heaven with, if you will. Miss Melinda, thank you so much for sharing that, but also being willing to be transparent about it. So she heard something in a message. We talked about it last March time frame, and in April. But very quickly, while we got the time, my arm's getting tired holding the camera, the microphone here. It's all right. You took some practical steps to make it happen.
Right.
So not only you carried gospel tracts, well, you had gospel tracts in your car.
Right.
But then you get out of the car at the dog park, and what happened?
I'd forget. And the dog park, you go down a hill and you go a ways, so I'd have to hike back to the car to get the tracks, and
It's amazing how much.
I kept forgetting.
It's all seriousness. It's amazing how much convenience can play a role for us. But then you overcame that. How?
I just got a satchel and kept some things for the dog in the satchel, and I keep my satchel stocked with different tracks, and I make sure I have it all the time with me now. So
amen. Well,
it works.
Thank you for number one being willing to be on camera, to be on the microphone, and greatly appreciate that. But I want to thank you, Miss Belinda, for you have no idea how many people that will see this, hear this, that will think, you know what, I could use gospel tracts.
Just get out there and start passing out tracts. Really, people, it has helped my Christian life so much. I've been a Christian my entire life, and I wish that I had started this years and years and years ago, because it's just brought me so much closer to the Lord. It's just made the Bible, my Bible time, so much more real and touching. It's just really is good.
Miss Belinda, I promised you a 2-minute interview. It's been about 5 now.
Oh my goodness.
But in all seriousness, time flies when you're having fun. Thank you. For those of you listening right now, heed what Miss Belinda just told you. Just do it. Just get out there and get some gospel. Get yourself a satchel if you need to. Go get yourself a rescue dog if you need to go to the dog park to have a reason
it's so
to meet
much fun.
Absolutely. And to think 275 people that you're praying for, and praying for them intelligently. You know these people, you know their names. You see many of them,
on
often.
a regular basis, yeah.
So you're putting heart. It's not just kind of fire and forget. You're thinking about it. So thank you, Miss Belinda.
You're
and
welcome.
to those of you listening, heed what she's telling us. All right. Man, aren't you fired up? Doesn't that absolutely just turn your crank? Doesn't that just make you think, I've got to use gospel tracts? I'll tell you, for me, now throughout this trip, this trip out to California, I have been using gospel tracts at a fairly good clip. I'll be honest with you, I'm getting close to running out. And so I've got a couple days left here. I'm going to be here all week. And so I'm thinking I've got to scrounge up, thankfully, this church here in Lodi. They've got good gospel tracts, and actually planning on going out with the pastor and putting out some gospel tracts here soon. But in all seriousness, it got me fired up to talk to a lady that realized that fear, that laziness, that these, yes, human failures, human foibles, these little quirks of humanity, they can keep you from using gospel tracts the way you should. But she decided to overcome that and to hear how God is blessing. I think a story that she told me off camera, off microphone, that you may have not heard, she told me that she normally likes to talk to people one-on-one. Number one, it helps her because it's not so fearful, it's not so overwhelming or intimidating. But she was talking to a man who was being a little bit difficult. He was being, honestly, a little bit of a jerk. And he was just trying to get her off track as she was discussing spiritual things. And he was standing on the outskirts of a group. And he said some foolish things, and she said, you know what, you need the gospel. You need a gospel tract. And I don't recall the exact circumstances, but she took a gospel tract and passed one out to every single person in that group. She was bold for the sake of the gospel. And to think about it, she's evidently been bold because in the last 12 months, she's put out, just in gospel tracts that she has tracked herself, people whose names she's gotten, over 275. Can you imagine that? Man, oh man, I would put her up with some of the best gospel tract users of the past year. I'm excited to see how God is going to bless Miss Belinda. And as she mentioned, it helps her walk with God to use gospel tracts. Let me encourage you today to use gospel tracts. Maybe you're listening right now and you say, all right, Brother Micah, I do need to use gospel tracts. Where do I begin? What's the starting point? Let's get started practically. What should I do? I would recommend going to BibleTractsInc.org. That's our website, BibleTractsInc.org. I'm not referring you there so you can give a donation. If God lays that on your heart, great. But I'm not doing it so you can get into a sales funnel and so that we can get 3 easy payments of $19.95 out of you, okay? I'm sending you there because we print gospel tracts for free, and we put them around the world and in Christians' hands just like yours for free. And so I'm going to ask you, go to BibleTractsInc.org. That's BibleTractsInc.org. Maybe the place to start practically would be to go to our website and to order one of our sample booklets. It'll come in an envelope very similar to what I'm holding in my hand right now. Those of you that are watching the video version can see it, but I'll describe it to you. It's a 6x9 envelope, and it's got a lot of phenomenal information in it. We're going to talk about that later in this week a little bit as we dive back into the book of Mark. I haven't forgotten about our Bible study. We've got a lot to cover in the book of Mark later this week. But if you want to start using gospel tracts, if you want to commit to getting involved for the sake of the Great Commission, I'd recommend going to BibleTractsInc.org today. BibleTractsInc.org. If you have a question, a comment, or maybe you even have a testimony of how God has used you for the sake of gospel tracts, I'd love to hear from you. It seems like more and more people are responding whenever I ask you to. If you have a testimony, we may even feature it in an upcoming newsletter. Text me today. Here's my cell number. You ready? I'll say it nice and slow twice. Get your phone out. Get your paper and pen. Write this number down. Text me at this number, 309-316-7240. Again, that number is 309-316-7240. We've got a lot more to talk about from this kitchen in Lodi, California. Have a great day for His glory. We'll talk to you all soon. God bless.